Okay, so this is going to be our next, it's going to be a quick video, hopefully. This is going to be the next topic we discuss in Chapter 1 for Employment Law. So, I'm going to talk about tort liability. Okay, so obviously this is real important. It's basically discussing an employer's responsibility and accountability for their independent contractors, subcontractors, and employees under their employee. So, a tort is a private civil wrong as opposed to a crime, which is a wrong committed against the public. Okay? So, this is an offense against the party, basically. A tort's an offense. An employer is liable for any tort committed by their employee within the scope of employment. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. You are responsible for your employees. If you're a business owner or human resource manager, ultimately the employer is liable for anything that their employee does within the scope of employment while they're on the clock. If they're doing commission work, however, you're responsible. Okay. The next bullet point is an employer isn't liable for torts committed by an independent contractor because the employer has no control over an independent contractor's work. So we were discussing that in the previous video. We were using the example of electricians. So if you hire an electrician and you get a subcontractor as an electrician, you might be liable to some degree because, if you hire them, depending on how licensing is and whatnot, but ultimately each subcontractor has their own insurance to protect them. So you wouldn't be responsible. The last point, I should say, an employer is responsible for any fraud or misrepresentation committed by an employee where they placed him in a position that led people to believe the agent/employee had authority. So this might be security personnel pretending they're police. This could look like anything, really anything. Anything that again, to the first point, anything that your employee does under your employee, you're responsible for. So I use a security company as an example because in our textbook we talked about some security guards. And that is something that you do see happen from time to time, in security. A lot of it is, I guess an example would be, they call them mall cops or mall security and skateboarders at the mall. And sometimes the mall security oversteps their authority and exerts themselves due to frustration in a moment or whatever the reason, overexerts themselves onto the teenager, the skater, and then the parents of the kid sue that security company, which are usually subcontractors. They get jammed up like that a lot. So when you talk about becoming, a lot of people say, I've met a lot of people through my various business endeavors, but security is one that always comes up. People talk about getting built, buying, starting security companies, and one of the things I always mention is, there are a lot of risks associated with that. There are a lot of risks associated with it. Okay, so that is tort liability in a quick nutshell. I'm going to refer to the book briefly and see if there's any points that stood out that I might have missed or anything else I think that stands out. And if not, that will conclude our tort liability topic. So let's take a quick look here. Okay, this looks like our section on tort liability. Okay, so this is a good one. This is about the construction. Louis Malato is a construction worker who was hired by Valentini Construction Company. Currently, Louis is working on the 44th floor of an office building in downtown Houston. Manaluto has his toolbox at his feet, but when someone calls him, he is surprised and accidentally knocks the toolbox off the beam. The toolbox falls onto a pedestrian walkway that was covered by a heavy plastic grating. Linda Anderson, who was walking through the walkway at the time, is severely injured. Manaluto is an employee because he works exclusively for Valentini and is under Valentini's direct control. Who is liable for Linda's injury? Linda may sue both Louis Malnatino, I butchered this name, but gotta work on my pronunciation, and Valentini Construction Company. So she's gonna sue the employee and the employer. Manaluto acted negligently in knocking over the toolbox. Valentini Construction Company is liable for Manaluto's negligence because it occurred during his scope of employment, and the accident was related directly to the business at hand. Suppose that at lunchtime, Manaluto stops at a bar across the street to drown his sorrows, and that a patron comments, "I saw the whole episode, and it was a real stupid thing you did." Manaluto, angered by the patron's comments, punched him in the face, causing the patron to suffer a fractured nose and concussion, rocks him. Is the principal liable for Manaluto's acts? No. Valentini Construction Company is not liable for Manaluto's tort of assault and battery because it did not occur within the scope of employment. The tort was not related to the business at hand. Manaluto would be solely liable. So the toolbox situation where he knocked the tools off, the construction company could get jammed up with him, but with him getting drunk at the bar and putting the paws in that man, they're not liable. Okay. So, I want to see if I have a better one. But that'll be good for now. Alright? So that will conclude tort liability.